Hey, what's up, everybody? Virtua Kazama here, and you know what? It's a brand new year. Happy New Year! And you know, I've been making videos. I've been doing streams for a while, and mostly about Virtua Fighter content. But I never ever made a video talking about my love for Virtua Fighter, like what Virtua Fighter means to me, and I've never got a chance to talk about that. And this is not something that you could write up or anything else like that, or anything in particular. But I thought to myself, in case you guys remember last month, um, Virtua Fighter made a huge comeback with a new entry. Plus, we also had Virtua Fighter 5 R.E.V.O open beta, which I also played as well. And of course, when you guys saw my reaction at the Game Awards, you guys you guys noticed how much I lost my collective mind. Like I reached Nirvana when I saw that news that Virtua Fighter is coming back. And yes, yes! Oh my god! Honestly, I was shocked to see that the Japanese VF community, sorry, Japanese fighting game community in general, saw my video, and I believe one of them shared it to Osu Akira, who I managed to get a laugh out of. Oh my god! But for those, but you know what? Since we do have a following, I think the Japanese fighting game community, certain members of the Japanese fighting game community follows me, so I guess it's time to discuss, my history of Virtua Fighter, what it means to me, and all that good stuff. And where did my love for Virtua Fighter come from? So I figured let's go ahead and talk about my origin. Let's go ahead and talk about this whole origin story of Virtua Kazama loving Virtua Fighter. And you know what? Let's start with the most simple one of them all. Let's begin with Christmas Day, 1995. So, Christmas Day, 1995. I was 4 years old at the time, and my dad got me, my parents, my dad mostly, got me a Sega Saturn for Christmas. Now, it was my first console that I ever owned as a kid, as I was little. So, the game that came with it was a copy of Virtua Fighter Remix. And for those that don't know what Virtua Fighter Remix is, Virtua Fighter Remix is an updated version of VF1 on the Saturn with updated graphics and bug fixes. And when I played that game, oh my god. When I played that game, I it blew my mind because, video games were going 3D. We're going through with 3D graphics, and for fighting games, this was my first fighting game I ever played, and to me, it was mind blowing. Like it was something I've never seen before. I've never seen a fighting game. Like I know about my cousins. My cousins, they play like Street Fighter 2. I watched my cousins play Street Fighter 2 for the Super Nintendo growing up when I was little. I was too young to remember some of it, but when it came to Virtua Fighter, that was a mind blowing experience for me. I remember, there was no training mode, so it was arcade versus an options, or if you have a code, ranking mode. But then again, I was too young to know the codes and stuff like that. So I remember the times when I played Virtua Fighter with my dad, and we had so much fun together. And Virtua Fighter Remix was the game that actually introduced me to the series, and honestly, you know, I've stuck with it. And then, you know, at the time when the Saturn was releasing more games, like Virtua Fighter 2 was already out by then. I learned about fighting Vipers. I also learned about Fighters Megamix. When I was little, my parents and I and my sister, we would all go to Blockbuster, and I would rent a game. One of the games I rented the most was Fighters Megamix, followed by Virtua Fighter 2. And for those games, I didn't own them until 2004 when I actually was introduced to retro game collecting. And those, and Virtua Fighter 2, Fighting Vipers, Fighters Mega Mix, those were the first three games I bought for the SEGA Saturn through East Starland. Which, by the way, the website is still there today. I'm not kidding. But back to when I was as a kid growing up, late '90s, I did get some video game magazines growing up, and I remember one of them I remember seeing was Virtua Fighter 3. Now, Virtua Fighter 3 was mind blowing at the time for 1996 because right now, I already knew about Virtua Fighter 2, but I never got a chance to play it until I think a year or two later as a little kid. What else do I remember? Um, I remember seeing it through a magazine. I remember seeing a large sumo. I remember seeing another new character. I saw a lot of things. The graphics were crazy. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, you know what? I can't wait for it to come out for the Sega Saturn. Like, I love the series. It's crazy. It's amazing. I love the series. But, y'all know the history of that one. Saturn wasn't doing so well in North America. It wasn't doing well in Europe. And by 1998, it completely, Sega ended support for that. But, honestly, that didn't stop me from playing Virtua Fighter. I think Virtua Fighter 3, the first time I played Virtua Fighter 3, was at a King's Dominion back in 1998. It was the last day of summer before I went back to school. I started second grade in a new school. And, my family and I, took a bus trip to King's Dominion with, fellow, other people from daycare. It was probably the best thing it was probably the best thing I've ever seen because Virtua Fighter 3 was completely different. I didn't think for a second that Virtua Fighter 3 would be like, there was going to be there's going to be stage environments, there's the slopes, those walls, the game has 4 buttons. Like, what was this? I don't remember. That was like the only time I played VF3 until I want to say 1999, 2000 when I got my Dreamcast. Yeah, so yeah, I'm jumping all over the place, but my history with Virtua Fighter is like I know it's a little bit all over the place, but it goes back, from there. So Dreamcast, yes, I actually want to jump into that right now because when I got my Dreamcast for Christmas back in 1999, my first games are obviously my first games were Marvel vs. Capcom. It was Sonic Adventure 1. And other games as well. I didn't get Virtua Fighter 3 TV until I think 3 months later. Yeah, 2 or 3 months later, and my dad bought that along with Soul Calibur 1, and I played both of those games. I played and enjoyed both of those games. Like, I loved them so much. Although I feel like as a kid growing up, I remember playing Virtua Fighter 3 more than I did with Soul Calibur. But the only time I played Soul Calibur was with friends that came over. And, um, I remember, endless sleepovers. A lot of kids would rather play Soul Calibur over Virtua Fighter, which I know. But there's some that actually were into playing VF, and I introduced them to it. So, Virtua Fighter 3, it was the first game where it was actually the first game that I've beaten. First fighting game that I've beaten, as a matter of fact, because I've tried arcade. Like as I got older, I was actually starting to get better at playing arcade mode and stuff like that. And then when I fought Doral, for the very first time, it was it was something I'd never seen before. Who's this lady? Now I know Doral was in the first 2 games. I remember I was too young to play arcade mode, so I remember not making it that far because the games were too hard or something like that. So there's that. But Virtua Fighter 3 TV. It was out for the Sega Dreamcast, and of course, I thought to myself, "Is this the end? Like, are we gonna see more Virtua Fighter after this?" And the answer was no. It was not the end. So of course, y'all know the story. Of course, you guys know the story here. The Sega, went third party. They ended the support for Dreamcast. Decided to go third party, and I thought to myself, what's going to happen with games like Sonic? What's going to happen with Virtua Fighter? What's going to happen with all the best Sega IP that they released? It wasn't until I want to say 2002 where I learned about Virtua Fighter 4. Now, keep this in mind. I didn't know Virtua Fighter 4 came out in 2001 already. It was not. It was not under my radar at the time because I thought to myself, I was still stuck on Virtua Fighter 3 TV. And of course, as a kid growing up, I didn't know about. I was like a little too young about to know about the internet. The dial-up days and stuff like that. I didn't look online, Sega and all that stuff, so it was hard for me to tell what was going to happen. But when I learned about Virtua Fighter 4, I was I was like, what? What is this? Virtua Fighter's on a PlayStation console? On the same console as Tekken? What? This is madness. I was in disbelief, but at the same time, I was interested because it was something I've never seen before. It was something that I've never seen before. And then Virtua Fighter came out. I think the first time I played Virtua Fighter 4, I want to say, again, Blockbuster. I didn't own VF4 until years later into my retro gaming collecting. I think deeper might got into retro game collecting era, but again, more of that later. But I do remember the time I rented and played Virtua Fighter 4, and I was really amazed by the graphics. I was amazed by the gameplay. It was amazing. But what also drew to me was the fact that the game has customization. That was a first for me. I was like, what the heck? This character is dressed as different than AR characters. So how do I do that? And again, I rented it. I rented the game. I didn't go too deep into it until years later. But I think a year later, when I was in middle school. I was Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution came out for PS2, an updated version of it, that is. And honestly, that was when I realized, okay, I need to get Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution. I didn't get VF4 last time, but I will get VF4 Evolution. Now, VF4 Evolution on the PS2. This was a game that I never thought I would get because I was getting best of both worlds here. I was getting not one, but two games. And I remember while I was watching X-Play, I was watching an episode of X-Play, they were talking about Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution, and then after that, they mentioned that there's another game, there was another Virtua Fighter game inside Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution. I was like, wait a second, wait. They look like, it's the same characters, but they're in VF1 models. Like, what is this? That wasn't, when I got the game for Christmas, this is when I learned that Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution had another game. It was called Virtua Fighter 10th Anniversary. Now, that game, I remember I played Quest Mode a lot. I also played Virtua Fighter 10th Anniversary a lot. I had so much fun with the game. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't realize how deeply rooted this game was. Like, I was in middle school. I know I wasn't making much friends. I know I was being made fun of in high school and all that stuff. But honestly, Virtua Fighter, it was something it was like something I have never seen before. And on top of that, content from VF4 transitioning over to, VF4 stages being transitioned over to, Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution, which I've never seen it before. It was just crazy. I remember when I first played Quest Mode, I used Leifei. Because I feel like at the time I felt like Leifei was more of a good character. I tried Go for the first time, and I remember having a bad impression. Go gave me a bad impression because he felt limited in his strengths and he felt incomplete. I wouldn't say the same thing with Brad, but it's crazy. And again, I played a lot of that. And then by the time I got to high school, I didn't know about Virtua Fighter 4 about Tune at the time until probably YouTube days. But again, that is for the story. Um, for Virtua Fighter 5, I was in high school. Yeah, it was 2006. I would say summer. I was like my summer to my sophomore year of high school, which I'm gonna say this right now. Summer year my sophomore year of high school sucked, and being 16, 17, 15, 16 years old, it was the worst. But I remember looking at again. This was back then when I got into YouTube. YouTube was very early at the time, so I was looking for Virtua Fighter videos, and it turns out there was one for Virtua Fighter 5. One of them I saw was someone. It was a Pi versus Jeffrey. It was Pi versus Jeffrey, and I watched it and downloaded it on and watched watched it on my own time. And honestly, I've never seen anything like it. Like it was the first time I saw anything like it. Virtua Fighter Virtua Fighter in high definition graphics and stuff like that. Now, when it came to consoles, I had a 360 at the time. I didn't have a PS3. At first, I was a little distraught that was going to be released on a PS3. I thought it was going to be like a PS3 exclusive, but unfortunately, the one bad thing about that was that version didn't have online. That's because it's based off of version B. But then Sega later announced that there was going to be new it was coming to 360, and this will have online play. I was like, oh snap, never mind. I don't have to buy a new. I don't have to buy a new console then. So into my junior year of high school, I got the game. I actually rented the game through GameFly and then decided to buy it because again, I love Virtua Fighter, obviously. And I remember playing the game a lot. Like Virtua Fighter 5 Vanilla at the time was really amazing. And I remember I played a lot of it, especially from junior year and senior and up to my senior year of high school. One year, in my senior year of high school, we started a video game club, and I remember that I brought Virtua Fighter 5 to school along with my fight stick. Now those little hoary arcade sticks that were like really small, very minuscule, that kind of stuff. I had a Soul Calibur 4 version of that, which I still have to this day. And honestly, I was looking at it. I was like, oh my goodness, this game. It was a game that I was like, oh my god, I could definitely play people on it. I was doing good. Oh my god, I had a lot of fun. I think I got a lot of people to play it. Yeah, I got a lot of people to play it. And video game club, Virtua Fighter 5. A lot of people tell me, can you bring in Virtua Fighter 5? Can you bring in fighting games? I was like, yeah, I can do that. So, yeah, that happened. And then after I graduated high school, I was in my junior college, in community college, and of course, I was looking at stuff. I was looking at again YouTube. Oh shoot, no. Let's go back real quick. I missed some steps real quick. Let's go back. So, around the time I would say during my days in high school, I discovered more virtual Fighter content I'd never seen in high school. And I was in high school. Like I never knew about. The one thing I remember learning about was Boom Boom Mario versus Diamond Lao. That was one of the first Virtua Fighter videos I looked at in terms of the competitive scene. Excuse me. I learned about the Athena Cup and the B Tribe Cup later on. I've learned about what else did I learn about? There was that. There was the Athena Cup, B Tribe Cup. There was also Virtua Fighter 4 of Final Tune, which I didn't know about the time, and I was really curious about that. And until like years later, when I first played it, and then later on there was more tournaments for it. I was like, okay, I was getting into the fighting game scene. I was actually getting into the fighting game community as early as, I want to say, 2008-ish? Yeah, 2008, 2009. Because, when a friend of mine showed me, the Daigo parry, I was like, oh my god, that was amazing. But in terms of Virtua Fighter, we had a lot of Virtua Fighter content on there. I was like, oh my goodness. I didn't realize Virtua Fighter was this big in Japan. Like, oh my goodness. This Virtua Fighter has a competitive scene that I never knew about. As early as the 1990s. It was wild. So I saw that, and then Virtua Fighter 5R, when that got announced. Oh my goodness, when that got announced, when I saw, Sean, made his debut, and then I saw Taka come back. Which, by the way, I failed to talk about that. By the way, let me tell you, when I was a kid, when I learned that Taka was gone in VF4, was absent from VF4 Evolution and VF5 Vanilla, I was distraught because I was like, where did Taka go? Virtua Fighter never removes people. What's going on here? It wasn't until I learned there on that, they tried to put him in, but the problem is his physics were too complex, which sucks. And then after that, oh my god, oh man, I remember making a video. When I got into YouTube, making YouTube videos, I was like, we should definitely, have a petition to bring VF5R to consoles. Like, I wanted to play VF5R so badly, and then all of a sudden, I then learned that Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown was announced. I was like, what? Okay, never mind then. Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown was out in arcades. I remember watching a couple of footage of it, and I was really amazed by it. The gameplay and all. And then a year later, while I was in college, I was in college at the time. I graduated high school. But by the time I got into later in college, like I think 1 year later, 1 year later, I then learned that, Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown's coming to consoles. And I was like, okay, bet. I gotta get on Virtua Fighter. Now, I was already into the fighting game community at the time, very early at the fighting game community. By then, I think I did use a Virtua Kazama name back then. But also, at the same time, it was like, oh my goodness. I was still a little timid. I was still a little shy, coming from, all that stuff, it wasn't easy for me, it wasn't easy for me to get into FGC, because I was a little afraid at times, but Virtua Fighter, I thought to myself, you know what, I should definitely find a scene, I should definitely get into, Virtua Fighter. So, like I said, around 2010, I did join, VFDC, and I wanted to get into it, like get into the 3D fighting games, like FGC. So I had a bad experience. True story. After I graduated college, I'm going back because I'm missing a lot of context of this one. I think this is a one true story right here that I want to do before we jump back into the Virtua Fighter knowledge right here. I remember joining Shoryuken back in 2009, and yeah, I remember if you guys know what Shoryuken's like, it was like the Wild West for fighting game forums and stuff like that. It was the #1 fighting game forum of all time. And yeah, I don't want to go too much into detail. Things happen, and I had a bad experience with it, but I got over it at times. But that's a whole different video. I'll make a whole different video about that later. But back to Virtua Fighter. Virtua Fighter VFDC was really, really interesting. I played a lot of VF5 Vanilla, especially from high school up to college, when VF5 Final Showdown came out. Like, I would bring it with me at UMBC. I'll bring it with me at UMBC along with Dead or Alive. And when Virtua Fighter came out, when Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown came out, I would play that and Dead or Alive a lot. Because at the time, it was 2012. At the time, this is when I started competing. And, of course, back then, when Virtua Fighter, did collab with Dead or Alive with, Akira, Sarah, Pi joining, DOA 5 Vanilla, followed by Jackie and DOA 5 Ultimate. I thought to myself, let me compete in Dead or Alive because it has Virtua Fighter characters. Let me just get right into it. And I remember, competing in my first tournament for DOA, which was obviously, the Fall Classic back in 2013. But but one thing about this, and I remember, I wanted to compete in Virtua Fighter, but the problem was, there was not enough people to play me in VF. Like I had to go look online. I had to go figure out what was going on. Like I was so focused on the DOA community at the time, and honestly, I felt like I did play on Peaceful J streams at one point, but I remember I was terrible because I used Lao at the time. I was having a character crisis when Fall Showdown was out, and honestly, it wasn't until 2017 where I began competing in. That was when I first began competing in the VF community under No Matter the Cost. Now, if you guys don't know what No Matter the Cost is, it was an event created by Chief Flash, and I competed in 4 VF games. There was Virtua Fighter 1. Oh, sorry. It was Virtua Fighter 2. It was Virtua Fighter 3 TB. It was VF4 Evolution / Final Tuned. And it was VF5 Final Showdown. Now, I was doing horrible. Like, VF2, I was doing well. I was in top 8 for that one. VF3, top 16. VF4, didn't make it. VF5, I went 0-2. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I was using Lao at the time, but and this was when I learned that I was having a character crisis because I wasn't clicking with that character. This was one thing I was having an issue. I wasn't clicking with that character. So, I met a lot of great players. I met Tricky. I met Blitzball Champ. I met B Bounty Hunter. I met a lot of great people. I met a lot of great people in the VF community. Those guys were great. I think this was also the same year I also met Korimaru at the time as well, because Korimaru traveled. He was cosplaying as Akira, and honestly, I didn't know him well at the time until now, which is crazy. But yeah, it was great. It was great. It was a great time. I had a great time. I played with a lot of great players. I had fun. And it really got me into, being part of the Virtua Fighter community. It got me a taste of it, as a matter of fact. And then, 2018, 2018, I started streaming a little bit. I started Virtua Fighter Month. I started Virtua Fighter Month, blogging writing blogs about it as early as 2014, as early as 2014, 2015. And of course, every year I usually do like a blog on Destructoid. Unfortunately, Destructoid blogs are no longer a thing anymore. I miss that. But honestly, it was a way for me to talk about Virtua Fighter because I loved everything about it. Every year I would have like different topics to talk about with Virtua Fighter and stuff like that. And I will definitely love discussing things that not many people knew about when it comes to Virtua Fighter. So it was like, what can I talk about? What kind of topic can I talk about? And Virtua Fighter Month, it happens every December. So that was one thing. I did that. 2019 was the year where I almost left the fighting game community because of Dead or Alive 6. I remember DOA 6 came out, and I remember not liking it, and it really made me turn me. I feel like that game turned me away from fighting game. Well, I would say it turned me away from the DOA series as a whole, but I feel like it also gave me no purpose to compete in fighting game tournaments because there was no other game I could think of that I could compete in, and it wasn't until December when I got later in the year 2019, I decided to try my hand at streaming again after making Let's Plays. So I wasn't getting anywhere while streaming, and I thought to myself, let me try making a video. Not making a video, but let me try doing a history lesson on Virtua Fighter. And what inspired me to do that was, well, it was Proton John, as a matter of fact, that inspired me to do that because he was doing his history of SNK streams. And I thought to myself, what if I do that, but with Virtua Fighter? And I did that, and I became Twitch affiliate because of that. And then, going to 2020, I thought to myself, let me go ahead, let's go ahead, make some money. Let's make the streaming thing. Let's have some fun with streaming. Let's go ahead and do something. Let's do something, make something out of nothing. And then COVID happened. I was streaming. COVID happened, and one day I thought to myself, let me see what happens when I play Virtua Fighter. Who will be interested in playing Virtua Fighter? So I started hosting a Virtua Fighter session with VF5 Ultimate Final Showdown, and then we were like, oh my god, he had a full room. And then I thought to myself, okay, we got something. And then I feel like we were all, asked a question. I think Hubs was the one that asked this. I think Hubs or Tricky, one of the two, asked or mentioned, stream. I don't remember saying this, but people said they wanted to do a tournament. And I thought to myself, okay, let's do a tournament. Let's see what happens. Let's host a monthly or something like that. And that's where I realized, let's try this and see how it goes. Now, my first tournament, like I said, I had no idea what I was doing because I'd never done this before. But at the same time, when I learned about this, I was like, okay, I got something here. Let's make a series out of it. And from there, in 2020, that's when I created Virtua Fighter Takeover. Virtua Fighter Takeover would be my flagship. My flagship streams, because I'll host Virtua Fighter sessions, and I would definitely host it with other players. And I thought to myself, let's do monthlies, and then all of a sudden let's change the monthlies into bi-weeklies. And the bi-weeklies was actually, the way to go, and people loved it. People loved interchanging between the 360 version and the PS3 version, and what so forth, so far, so forth. And it was like, it was crazy. Like, I come back, I was in the middle of a move, I came back from a move, I come back from a move, start streaming again, and then all of a sudden, Sega came out of nowhere, follows me on Twitch. True story, by the way. I have a clip of that. I'm gonna go ahead and resell this up. Alright, so...
By the way, if anybody here is a fan of the band Avatar, their new album came out Friday. It's fire.
Sega, thank you for the follow! What?
Oh, Sega didn't give me a follow.
Nice. I know. I never got one. I never got one either. What the heck?
And they tuned into mine about a few weeks ago. I didn't get.
Oh my gosh!
I'm
thank
salty.
You so much.
I'm salty and jealous. Congrats, though. Congrats, dude.
Wow. Thanks.
Don't make us unfollow. Oh,
Don't
no.
make us unfollow. Listen, I'm streaming Yakuza 0 tomorrow, by the way, in case you haven't noticed. Sorry.
Yep. I'm thinking.
I'm actually playing Yakuza. And, it was crazy. Like, I'm hosting tournaments again. I have Sega following me. It was something I've never seen before. I was like, oh my goodness. I got something here. I got Virtua Fighter. And then here we are today. I've been hosting bi-weeklies. I've been hosting tournaments. And then when I learned about Virtua Fighter across esports, which later became Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown, a couple months later, I was like, okay, we got something here. And then during the pandemic, there were offline tournaments were starting to open back up again. I had to wear a mask. It was when I realized that I'm actually back to making. I was actually, it got me back to the fighting game tournaments again. But this time, I'm competing and commentating at a game I love. And I remember, I think 2 weeks later, after I lost my job, I started doing commentary on Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown for NEC, as well as competing which was great. Oh my goodness. I had a great time, man. It was my first time doing commentary for a fighting game tournament, and I enjoyed every moment of it. And then 2022, jumping into 2022, still doing the same thing. I got a chance to meet two voice actors, Eric Kelso and Diesel Wilkerson, the voices of, you know, Jackie and Sarah from VF, as well as, you know, win my first tournament. It was a convention tournament, yes, but looking back at it, it was something. It was the first time I ever won something at a tournament. I remember it gave me a lot of confidence. And then in 2023, you know, I did commentary as well as making it to, you know, grand finals for the very first time at a fighting game tournament at Run Brawl, followed by, you know, making the losers finals at NEC that year. Oh my god, I was still pissed off at the fact that I lost to Eileen. Carlita, if you're watching this, I want my run back. Oh my god. It was just crazy, man. It was just crazy that I have been through. I've been through all that, and that was on the 30th anniversary of Virtua Fighter, which, by the way, I actually did. I did a 30th anniversary stream as well. That's how much I love the game so much. To actually, and I did the history lesson. I did that. I did the history lesson again in 2023. This time, remixing it because at the time, you know, Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown was at R.E.V.O Japan, and I thought to myself, let me get people, you know, ready for it. So then after all of that, 2024, you know, fast forward to today, Virtua Fighter's back. I can't believe it. Virtua Fighter 4, 2024 for Virtua Fighter, like VF5 R.E.V.O. We got a Steam port of that, and then all of a sudden, a brand new Virtua Fighter game. Like, I was so happy because I waited 18 years for a new title. That's not Virtua Fighter 5. And I'm gonna say this right now, folks. Looking back into Virtua Fighter, looking back into, you know, my 30-year history for Virtua Fighter, what drew me into Virtua Fighter in the first place? It was the gameplay, the music, you know, the characters. It was you know, everything that made me fall in love with it. Like, Virtua Fighter, I've always said Virtua Fighter has been the blueprint of 3D fighting games. And honestly, for me personally, for someone who has a deep connection with Virtua Fighter since 1995 as a kid, it was just amazing. That reaction, I know a lot of people are saying that reaction was genuine. Yes, that reaction was genuine because I love the series. I love Virtua Fighter. I was really happy for the first time in a very long time. And I kept my expectations super low with that announcement. Like, I wasn't expecting Virtua Fighter to be announced at the Game Awards. That's why I reacted the way I did. And, you know, now that I'm seeing a lot of people, you know, other members of the fighting game community, you know, showing love to the Virtua Fighter community, it really warms my heart that, you know, Virtua Fighter is making a huge comeback. And, you know, I'm there to witness it to this day. But yeah, Virtua Fighter has been around. I love it so much. I'm glad it's back. I've always want to, you know, be part of it, and now I get to be part of the scene. I get to be part of, you know, something big. But yeah, that's my love for that's why I love Virtua Fighter so much. I love it because I grew up with it. I know a lot of kids, you know, they all talk about Sonic and Mario. Don't get me wrong, you know, I was Team Sonic. I was always Team Sega. No worries, I was always Team Sonic no matter what. But Virtua Fighter to me felt incredibly special because of what it created in the 3D fighting game sense. And I'm glad it's back. But yeah, that's it. Thank y'all for watching, guys. I'm very happy to express my love for Virtua Fighter to you all. And yeah, I know you guys are waiting, but now that's over, I can finally get to work on that other video. I just want to stop for a second because I just want to, you know, talk about my love of Virtua Fighter. You know, I want to open up with that. But yeah, like I said, play Virtua Fighter, folks. You know, VF5 R.E.V.O. Comes out in a few weeks. Virtua Fighter Takeover turns 5 this year. There's a lot here, and we got more plans, and we got a new Virtua Fighter on the way as well. So, like I said, if you want to see more Virtua Fighter content, like, comment, subscribe. You know the deal. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.